You say there are mysteries in every translation of every book of the Bible. They're all through it. They're hidden. And your purpose here is to reveal those mysteries.
Oh, yeah. And that's one kind of mysteries. There are mysteries of every kind. But yes, that is absolutely
What's the biggest mystery in there?
Oh, my goodness. People ask me that all the time. And I can't, but I'll just say that. Rather than say the mystery, I'll say something that's linked to that. And this is just something here that the principle, there's one point where the teacher takes the disciple into this thing called the Chamber of Books and says, look at all the books. He says, how long would it take you to learn all this? And he says, or learn one shelf. He says, well, 10 years. Learn the whole thing. So it would take a lifetime or lifetimes. And the teacher says, that's why you have eternity. He says, because eternity is the length of time it takes to know God. That's why. Mm-hmm. It is never to end. God is the mystery. God is the biggest mystery. In the book of mysteries, there's also end time mysteries. And one is this. The Bible says in the last days, there'll be a great falling away. And we know that. And that means falling away from faith. But there's a mystery in the word. The original word is apostasia. We get apostasy from it. Apostasia doesn't just mean falling away from faith. It literally means the departure from the state of being. And what that means is in the last days when you see people falling away from faith, you will also see a departure from the state of being. In other words, you will see men depart from the state of manhood. Women depart from the state of womanhood. Marriage depart from the state of marriage. We are witnessing all these things in this day. And that goes back to the original language of the Bible. And the thing is, because if you take away the word, the creation exists because of the word. Take away the word, creation is going to start falling away. So that is all part of what the Bible says for the last days. And it really goes right along with it, because if a culture turns away from God, then the sign of the covenant, man and woman, which is a sacred thing about, God and us, it's a creation, then that's going to get all out of whack. Then women will say we don't need men, we don't need women, What that's saying is we don't need God. It's a sign of what's happening in the culture.
And that goes to Romans 1, which lists all these sins and ends with lesbianism.
Yeah.
And when it gets to that point, he says that I will
turn them over
to a reprobate mind.
And notice how he says it. He first starts talking about man turning away from God. Then he talks about women turning away from men and men turning away from women, because it's the sacred symbol. So it really, in a strange way, it's reflecting what is happening in the culture. It's a perfect reflection of it. And that's why there's a war against gender. That's why children are being told you're not male or female.
That's the next step.
Yeah. It goes back to a mystery that goes back to the Garden of Eden.
And now we're going to pervert children. I mean, that takes my breath away.
Yeah.
But some people don't get excited about that. I saw a prophetic element to that. I'm not a prophet and don't claim to be, but you don't have to be to realize that this was a major departure from God's plan for mankind.
It's gigantic, and it affects the future. And really, and this will go back to the Harbinger too, that what happened in the last days of Israel, we are watching what is happening in America. And this is all part of it. We're seeing things, even since I was last here, what has happened in America? There's a guide to teachers, and it says, don't use the hateful words girls or boys anymore. You cannot use those words. The children are raised.
The Navy doesn't use men and women anymore.
It's crazy. And it is, now of the children born of mothers from 25 years old to 31, they say 60% are being born outside of marriage. 6 out of 10 are not going to know the covenant, are not going to know this. But this also goes with what the Bible says for the last days. It says, men shall, it's going against the order of God, and we have to be strong. That's another reason why I wrote this. We have to be strong. This has to be our strongest hour.
Do you see in that mystery and all that you've described a harbinger, if you will, of the coming of Christ and the end of days?
Yeah, when you read, all right, I'm going to answer that with another mystery, if it's okay. In the book of Daniel, it speaks of the 4 kingdoms. It speaks of the last kingdom, the 4th creature. And this represents the final state, the final civilization. And the word used in Hebrew to describe it is a word that means unnatural. It says this creature was diverse, different from all the rest. And the word in Hebrew can mean unnatural, artificial. It's not natural. And so one of the greatest signs we're seeing, I would say, of the end times, I'd say 2. people are always trying to find out who the Antichrist is, and they're always speculating and all these things. But this is absolute. One is that Israel is back. That's absolute. And the other one is the apostasy, that we're watching the greatest change we've ever seen. In history, this is greater than the change in the Christianization of Rome. This is faster, the greatest falling away from faith, but also the falling away from God's order and the order of being of nature, of what God created. So yes, I do see that. I do see that. And you ask, how long can this keep going?